Hi, and welcome to Celebration Bar Review. My name is Jackson Mumey, and we are starting now a new series that I call 10 Myths About the Bar Exam. And over the next 10 weeks or so, I'm going to take one myth a week and talk a little bit about it. These are things that I've seen over the years that may or may not apply to you, but in my experience, most of us at some point or another in going through the bar exam process will cross paths with these 10 myths, or at least most of them. And I hope that in talking about them, perhaps a little less formal way, it might give you a bit of insight into some things that are happening to you, or some pitfalls to watch out for as you prepare for your bar exam. Well, I wish I were as funny and clever as David Letterman. I'm not, and I'm going to try and move from number 10 up to number 1, but I'm not sure that necessarily any one of these are any less important than any others. And in fact, I'm starting today with one that I could probably just as easily be the number 1 myth, but it's certainly pervasive. And the myth is simply this, that it's all about me. And by that, I mean it's all about you as the bar taker. A little bit of background. Years and years ago, I taught high school when my kids were in high school, and my daughter, who's now a law student, go figure, had a very good friend, her best friend in fact, in high school, who was just full of energy and lovely and fun, and she was a student in one of my classes, and her constant mantra was, attention on me, focus on me, it's all about me. Which was pretty much the way Stacy functioned in life, and I think she's grown out of that, but nonetheless it was pretty funny because it really was the way she wanted the world to work. Just pay attention to me. Well, that's cute when you see it in a high school sophomore or junior. It becomes a little wearing when you're talking about an adult taking a bar exam. But in fact, as I work with bar students, whether they're third years coming out and taking the exam for the first time, or they're repeat bar takers, or they're licensed attorneys taking an exam because they're coming to a new jurisdiction, one of the common myths that I encounter is this notion that it's all about me, that everything has to revolve around me as the bar taker for the period of time that I'm studying. Now, to be sure, taking the bar exam is hard work. We're going to talk a lot about that over the next few weeks. It's intense and it's potentially stressful. I think there are ways that you can mitigate the tension and the stressfulness, but one of the interesting things that happens is that it becomes very easy to become obsessed about the exam, to think that the entire world, the universe in fact, is focused on your bar exam. Now, as I record this particular message, we're still a little bit ahead of the presidential elections in the U.S., and I would say the vast majority of people in the world are much more interested in the stock market of their nation and then the presidential elections in the U.S. than they are about your bar exam. Nonetheless, I am constantly besieged by students who behave as though there is nothing else in the world except their bar exam. Now, I understand that rationale. I understand that there's a lot riding on it, and particularly in these hard economic times, not passing a bar could be a disastrous situation. But the question that has to be asked is, do you do better when you're obsessed about the exam, when you think that it's all about you? In other words, that everyone in the coffee shop should be quiet so you can study, or that your family and friends should leave you alone every night and every weekend, or that everyone around you should listen to you talk about the bar exam and how hard it is on a regular basis or a constant basis. I think the answer to that is obviously not. In fact, it seems to me that what's more important at this stage is that you have perspective, that you have some broader purpose. One of the things that I tell my students that often elicits a real surprise is that instead of telling them to work harder or to do more, or to quit their job and study for the bar exam full time, I often say you need to go get a job. If you can't find a job, you need to go volunteer. You need to do something nice for someone else. Well, don't you understand, Jackson? I'm busy. I've got to study. I've got to learn the rule against perpetuities. Get a grip. You won't. More importantly, when you begin to see what's out in the world around you, and I don't care where you live, whether it's in the U.S. or some other part of the world, when you see the world around you, you get a greater perspective on the work that you do as a member of the bar, as an attorney. You get a greater perspective that the bar exam is not life and death. Oh, it's important, but you won't die in the bar exam. I'm pleased to say that in 20 years, I've yet to lose anybody actually in the bar exam. I've had a few close calls, but no one has died in the bar exam that I've worked with. And the point really, without exaggeration, is that if you become obsessed with what's important to you, you will lose perspective. You'll start obsessing about your bar studies. You'll start thinking about it in the middle of the night and losing sleep. You'll start destructive behaviors like smoking or drinking or not exercising because you're stressed out about the bar exam. You'll get into fights with your spouse or your partner or your kids or your parents. You will become essentially a giant pain in the neck, or other parts of the anatomy, to those around you. In fact, your own pets will run away when they see you. This is a bad sign. This is an indication that you've gone over the top, that you've become so obsessed about your needs that you've lost sight of what you're doing and why you're doing it. Now, the myth is so dangerous because the more you think that this exam is about you, the more you lose the ability to step back and analyze it and deal with it calmly and coolly and rationally. Why do people hire attorneys? Well, one reason is because they need someone who's dispassionate and objective to represent their interests. The old saying that a fool that represents themselves has a fool for a client, or a person that represents themselves has a fool for a client, is also pretty true when it comes to taking a bar exam. If all you can think about is your needs, your wants, your fear of the exam, you will in fact find yourself drawn to those very negative emotions. You have to have a bigger picture of what you're doing. So, how do you blow up this myth? Take a few hours every week and do something for someone else. It could be just as simple as taking your spouse or friend or boyfriend or girlfriend or partner out to the movies, or taking your kids out and playing, or spending time volunteering in some capacity through your church or your community, or through your work, doing some pro bono work, doing something that gives you a larger sense of self. A couple things happen when that occurs. One is you actually will feel pretty good about yourself. You've done something nice for someone else, and you'll realize how great gifts you have and great opportunity you have to be able to take a bar exam. There are literally millions of people in the world who will never get that opportunity or anything close to it. We are very privileged, no matter where we're coming from, to be able to take a bar exam. Just being able to take the exam is a privilege. And so the less that you obsess about your own needs and your own wants and your own desires in this process, ironically, the better you'll do on the test. The less that you worry about what it means to you, and the more you think about the benefits for your family, your career, your friends, your standing, your ability to help others, the better off you'll be. You know, I'm always struck when I talk to first-year law students about the optimism and the hope and the enthusiasm they have and the reasons they want to practice law. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't those that come in and say, you know what I want to do is I want to be a greedy Wall Street lawyer and make millions of dollars. I have no doubt that was in the back of a lot of people's minds. But you know, that's not normally what's articulated. What's normally articulated is, I want to be a lawyer because I want to help other people. I want to feel like I'm an important part of my community and that I have something to contribute to the world around me. Those are pretty noble gestures. I would say that if we don't lose sight of what it means to be a kind and gentle member of our profession, then we're in fact on the road to actually passing the exam. So our first myth today is it's not all about you. It's really all about those around you. And the more that you're sensitive and aware of those around you, the more productive and the more effective your studies will be. And if you don't believe me, just try it for a week or two and see if you don't notice a difference. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. And as always, I'd love to hear from you if you have that experience, or if you've had some experience with thinking it's all about me and how that worked for you in the past. Well, thanks so much. Look forward to communicating with you in these weekly myth discussions as we count down towards the bar exam. And as always, feel free to contact me, Jackson@celebrationbarreview.com, with your comments and thoughts. And we'll be back again next week. Take care and have a great study week.